This sector is now decimated, destroyed, like PCS now. iMobile left to rot in the sun. Madam Speaker, what is left of this Financial Services Regulatory Commission? Look at the business plan. You would notice that an effort to collect revenue in the Treasury and in the legislation that you brought before this House, 40% of the cash, 40% of all the cash of the Financial Services Regulatory Commission must be paid into the Treasury. Madam Speaker, for the last 5 or so years, every single penny, almost every single penny made by the FSRC is gobbled up in high salaries, consultancy fees, and reorganization expenses. Over $9 million a year, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this cannot be right. This cannot be right. What tangible benefit are we getting? And I know I have to be fair that the Americans and the OECD countries have brought a lot of pressure to bear upon small, vulnerable countries like us, making us go back to Parliament from time to time to tighten our legislation, Madam Speaker, and trying in all that they can do within their power to also make this industry fail, because they do not want the millions of dollars to leave United States, mainland and Europe, to go to small little third world black vulnerable countries like this. They want those millions to stay in their centers and their financial centers. Madam Speaker, Chopper. If we look at Chopper, Madam Speaker, and the housing project at Follies and at North Sounds, houses were built by Venezuelans, Mr. Minister, financed by them, utilizing their material. These houses were said to be built for teachers and nurses, policemen, civil servants. Madam Speaker, there's only one little problem with this project, is that the mortgages, I understand, is more than the salary, in many cases, of the workers who are supposed to be buying them. Madam Speaker, as you know, most banks do not grant a mortgage if payments are over 50% of a person's income. Well, these houses mortgage are at best 100% of top civil servants and policemen's salaries, and sometimes nearly twice as much as the salary of many civil servants. So the reality is that most of the houses are unaffordable. They can't be bought. Madam Speaker, you know who the report is blaming? World economic conditions, global recession. Madam Speaker, everything this government, every failure, whether it's the Financial Sector Regulatory Commission, whether it's the car park sitting up there unfinished, whatever the problem is, Madam Speaker, it's global economic conditions. Pardon me? How many houses you've sold? Well, how many houses you've sold? Madam Speaker, you can find that excuse in the entire report. Social Security contributors dropped from 43,000, Madam Speaker, from 43,000 to nearly 38,000 because of high unemployment. The contributory revenue falls by 19% because all the high-paying jobs are no more. There's no more Stanford. There's no more investment. An economy made bankrupt by incompetence and a lack of common sense. And we hear ad nauseum. World economic conditions, global recession. Madam Speaker, I realize that the government withdrew the bill. I think they've sent it to a committee for the Social Security Act. But Madam Speaker, I just hope when they bring back that bill that they will delete out of it where there's a need to authorize an accompanying police officer when a Social Security inspector goes out to do his job. Why must the relation between Social Security Administration and private enterprise be deemed hostile? The language of that act itself, Madam Speaker, where it says may have a police officer accompanying the inspector. But the very act of entering upon a business premises with a police officer in tow seems intimidatory, Madam Speaker. Casino inspectors collecting money have never been authorized to have police officers accompany them. But a Social Security inspector, under this new act that they plan to bring back early next year, wishes to examine a computer file or accounting book, he then needs to have a police officer present? I don't think that is wise. That is harmful for the harmonious relationship between business and the Social Security Department. And Madam Speaker, I want to caution that if this becomes the norm, then this Parliament will be called upon to do the same for medical benefits, education levy, ABST, thereafter casinos, sports betting centres, hotel stores, shops and grocery stores will be subject to this display of unnecessary state power. And I think that this is very, very, very dangerous. Madam Speaker, may I now look at the Mount St. John Medical Centre? It has decided not to conform with the requirements of a business plan, like every other government body. It has included no vision statement, no mission statement, no assessment of its service performance, no critical reviews. I wonder why. Yet it is important, as the nation's premier public hospital, Hannah Thomas and Codrington being the other, cannot be understated. The public must develop faith and confidence in our health institution, Mount St. John Medical Centre. For it needs to convey to all that it can deliver great service as required. Madam Speaker, how can an operating room be expected to supply the services for which it was built without proper air conditioning? That was a major problem for more than 2 months this year. I note on page 245, fourth column of capital expenditure, that $1.5 million have been budgeted in 2012, or twice as much as 2011, for air conditioning. I welcome that, and I hope that the resources will be forthcoming, Madam Speaker, because it is not possible to run a modern hospital in the tropical Caribbean without proper air conditioning and ventilation. Then supplies under item 24 in the recurrent expenditure budget on page 243 have been reduced by more than $1.3 million in 2012. That cannot be real. Why would you reduce supplies by $1.3 million? It is not possible, even if reliance is placed on stores, for there to be that much of a reduction in supplies in any 1 year, Madam Speaker. Something definitely does not look right here. Minister, when so many patients and outpatients complain, and nurses frequently tell patients to go purchase their own supplies, how can you allow the Minister of Finance to reduce your supplies line item by nearly $1.3 million? Uniforms, I understand, suffer the same fate. I understand that staff members are sometimes sent back to their homes for not wearing uniforms, and that the hospital is now requiring staff members to purchase their own. I hope that is not true. The uniforms allocation have been reduced. Pardon me? Supplies on under item 24, page 243. I didn't see it said medical supplies, it just said supplies. What item number? Yes. Yes. That's different than supplies, sir. No, sir. No, sir. Why should I? Medical supplies is drugs. Supplies is Band-Aid, gauze, all the things that you use to wrap up people's things. They're two different items, Mr. Minister. Come on, don't try that smart one. But why increase medical supplies by nearly 50 million, but you reduce the general supplies? You need gauze, you need Band-Aid, you need the basic supplies. Should not reduce anything when it comes to that hospital. The terms of the contract, Madam Speaker, requires that uniforms be purchased by the hospital for staff. Uniforms have moved from $215,040 in 2010 to $20,577 in 2012, a 90% reduction. Do you see that, Mr. Minister, Mr. Honourable Member for St. John Cities? Why is that, sir? Why would you move uniforms from $215,040 in 2010 to $20,577? Is it because maybe you bought so many maybe in 2010 and maybe they don't need any? 2012? I do not know. That has to be an error, I think, though. Maybe a genuine error. But the Mount St. John Hospital cannot be shaving costs, Mr. Minister of Health. The impact on morale for such a tiny item in a budget of $51 million cannot be overstated. So kindly fix that. And Minister, through you, Madam Speaker, do you know that a 22-year-old expecting mother died of an ectopic pregnancy last week? She was admitted at 11 o'clock in the morning and was being wheeled to the theater almost 12 hours later, near midnight when she died. I'm sure you're aware of that. We spoke about it this morning, Mr. Minister. Can that be acceptable, Madam Speaker? A 12-year-old mother? She was not wheeled to the theater until midnight and she was admitted since 11 o'clock?
A 12-year-old mother?
Pardon me?
A 12-year-old mother?
Lady, pregnant woman.
Oh, you said a 12-year-old mother?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
22-year-old, not 12. 22-year-old young lady who was pregnant was not wheeled to the theater until midnight, Madam Speaker, almost 12 hours after she was admitted. Can that be acceptable? They did not take care of her, Madam Speaker. And she constantly complained of abdominal pain, but they did nothing for her. And you know what happened? She developed a rupture, started to bleed, and she bled to death. They left her there to bleed to death in front of everyone. And Madam Speaker, this is a very easy case.
Honourable Member, I think you're kind of going overboard on that. Because I had the same news item as you did, and I don't think you should be casting these kinds of aspersions on people who are not here to defend themselves.
I'm not casting any aspersions.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I'm not.
I think you're going overboard with that.
Madam Speaker, I do not seek to implicate anyone. You be quiet.
Well, you said they left her there to bleed
Madam
to death.
Speaker, if someone was admitted to hospital in the morning at 11 o'clock and she's pregnant and she's complaining of abdominal pain,
Honourable Member.
Until midnight.
Honourable Member.
Yes.
Honourable, please. Honourable Member. Again, don't go overboard on that.
I am not going to go overboard.
No, you are not a doctor.
You, Madam Speaker.
You're not a doctor.
But that is a fact.
You are prejudging a situation, and I would advise you to stop.
I want to ask you, Madam Speaker, are you aware of how many cases that have been brought for malpractice against the Mount St. John? Are you aware?
Honourable Member, I would ask you to stop.
But why we don't want the truth to come out, Madam Speaker?
You are not in a position because you are not in the position to determine the truth. Are you a medical doctor?
I'm not sure of what.
Honourable members, let's leave this subject alone. Move on, please.
And you know, Madam Speaker, the truth is this is not a one-off situation. I've come here in previous debates. I have listed out a whole slew of things. I've come here in the past, Madam Speaker. You all don't like to hear it. I will move on. But I've mentioned all the negligencies, the mishaps. Now you have a whole slew of law cases against the government. I don't know why you all don't want, so nobody can mention what is going on.
Well, if they're legal cases, let the court try them. Let the court try them. We're not going to try them. We're not trying, no, we are not trying cases in here.
Keep quiet. This is a simple case.
We are not trying any cases in here.
I'm not trying no case.
Well, leave them alone. Let them be tried in the courts of law.
If they, all it needed was proper surgical management and investigation and proper care. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Listen to the death announcements every day.
Can we move on from this?
All I will say on this. Yeah, move.
I don't want anything else on this.